Hello viewers and welcome back to a new video. Now we are in GT4 cars on the Nürburgring circuit, which is quite a fun combination, but the GT3 cars are way better in my opinion because you got much more speeds. Anyway, starting in P3, you can see we're having a bit of trouble with the camera since I had failed to record it. So for the first 5 minutes of the race you will have to be looking from the external camera because my incompetence has failed to record the race properly with the driver cam. Anyway, lights out and away we go. You barely even notice it until the cars actually start going. Again, in GT4 cars, you have the cars such as the Mitsubishi and the Subaru that are dominant on this track, which is a little weird, but we go on. Diving on the inside of the Subaru, just taking the inside line, he turns into me, and then that's an easy overtake, done and dusted. Now looking for the driver in P1, who is in the Mitsubishi car, which seems to be quite faster than my Ferrari, but the dominant car here is the Supra, which is a little surprising because usually supercars are not that dominant in Group 4 cars. Now you can see me pretty much pushing a little hard to overtake the driver up in P1, sticking very close to him and then making a tiny mistake on the exit of that corner, giving him a bit of breathing space, which he seems to be the faster driver, so I'm not trying to give him any sort of breathing space. And it turns out that it's not a Mitsubishi Lancer, it's actually a Subaru Impreza, which again is interesting because I remember that car being a Lancer. Maybe a bit of memory fade between the race and this, but we go on. Now going through this short straight, I'm substreaming behind the Subaru Impreza, making sure I'm very close and ready to overtake, which this corner is quite a tricky corner because again, you could be quite fast sticking to the apex of the corner or you could be quite fast being on the outside of the corner, which is quite interesting, but again, it's quite tricky to perfect, which I have done in GT3 cars, but in the Group 4 cars I have not raced on this track specifically in such a long time, whereas I'm having quite a bit of trouble keeping up with other drivers, maybe because I'm a little sick, but I don't know really, it's not my usual performance. Usually I'm quite better and quite more dominant. Now going through the same corner and I seem to be ahead, but the Mitsubishi or Subaru driver seems to have lunged me on the inside, which I have done the switcheroo quite perfectly, making sure I keep it nice and clean, not doing any sort of shenanigans which many drivers tend to make, and is quite interesting to see the amount of shenanigans or questionable driving tactics from drivers, which I've seen many drivers doing very questionable tactics, which is quite interesting, but a lot of the time I see drivers doing quite questionable tactics and driving strategies which are questionable, but you do you, I do me. So now going through the chicane on the final section of the track, you can see the Mitsubishi Evo is getting quite close to me, and yes, it turns out to be an Evo. It was a different car that I was fighting, and now the Evo sends it down the inside. I try to hang it around the outside, but it does not seem like he's giving me any sort of space. He's having none of it, so I'm gonna have to stick back in the slipstream and try to overtake on the next corner, which is a hairpin, which is quite the distance up ahead. And now I'm slightly gaining bit by bit, making sure I stay in the slipstream and ready to overtake on the next corner. So I send it around the outside, having a lot of pace on me. He's again doing questionable tactics, whizzing all around the place, and he tends to keep the position into turn 1 and 2. So now I'll stick back, keep my head down, I'll try to overtake on the next opportunity, which seems to be a lot, and I seem to be putting a lot of pressure, sending it down the inside right here, getting the position back, but then gaining a penalty for going off track on that specific corner, which is sometimes a little sad, but sometimes you don't get a penalty, so it's a bit of a 50-50, and it doesn't seem like I got a penalty, so happy days for me. So now I'm trying to extend my lead because I'm very sure this driver is not the cleanest of drivers, because I've been having a bit of hiccups in my races, and let's say I decreased my sportsmanship by quite an interesting amount. So the past few lobbies I haven't been racing with clean drivers specifically, to be honest. So it's gonna be interesting to see what wonders of the world this driver is going to pull today for me, which should be very interesting actually. As you can see, he's getting quite close to me, he's getting very close actually. He seems to be quite aggressive too, switching his car in and out, you know, looking for the next corner, being half and half in my slipstream. And you can see him sending it down the inside here, which was not the cleanest of moves, but I'll take it. It's not bad. I did a spin. It's borderline questionable, but it's not as bad as many others I've seen the past few days. And I've been having many interesting incidents, and ones that are quite annoying, that makes you want to break something, which I have broken many things, and this is one of the many incidents that I've been talking about. A lot of questionable and dirty driving that makes you want to commit not nice things. Anyway, going into the pit stop boys are getting ready to do their work, which they seem to be changing my tires from medium to hard and refueling my car a little bit because I've been running on a bit on the lower end of the fuel and I need to get to the pits ASAP. Out of the pits ASAP. So, the car coming in, changing the tires, medium tires out, hard tires in, refueling the car up into 1.1 laps. I can now push the car comfortably without having the risk of running on fuel. So you can see me switching from lean mode 6 to power 1. So now skipping forwards to pretty much the final chicane, you'll see this very interesting thing to happen because you see the two cars fighting up ahead have been doing a little bit of fighting, and you can see a little bit of not nice behavior. So I take advantage of that. Through goes Aki, and that's a P6, the Super GT Natural Habitat. So now into the next race. Well, I've took a nap and woke up to see the race not there anymore, so now we are racing on Deep Forest Raceway. Anyway, starting in P1, pretty much the dominant car out of all of them. Well, I feel like I could be better, but again, this race is super competitive because my qualifying lap time is only 2 seconds off the lead, which is not the best. There is actually much more players who are within the 2 seconds than I anticipated to be, because usually they would be a little bit more spread, but this track seems to be quite competitive, which is why all the cars you will see are very, very, very competitive. So now it's lights out and away we go. Being the lead car, everyone is tracking behind me to be in the slipstream, but again, anything under 200 kilometers an hour, the slipstream is not that much of an influence on the car. So now you can see me going through round 1, keeping it nice and tight, and going out of turn 1, being quite slower than the cars behind actually. Now you can see the car behind has caught up to me quite significantly, and now he's very, very close to me and is now ready to lunge at me at any given second, but seems like he made a mistake, and this gives me a bit more of a breathing room. So now his mistake is my opportunity to piss off into the sunset and be Max Verstappen. But it seems like I gave myself a 0.5 second penalty for going off the track limit somewhere, which seems to be a recurring theme of this race, because it seems like you could go off the track on track somehow. Yeah, now you're on track, but you get a penalty for going off track despite you are being on track, which is quite interesting, but it is what it is. I won't moan too much about it. Now going to serve my 1 second penalty. It's gonna be very easy for the driver behind to overtake, and he will overtake since I'm quite reasonably slower, maybe even 100 whole kilometers slower than him. So now going into the final, it's not the final corner, but at the final set of corners, you can see he makes a tiny mistake, giving me a little bit of redemption over him, but it's nothing too major, so we'll be skipping forwards. Into lap 3, now you can see same gap, but this time I'm in the slipstream and gaining on him bit by bit by bit by bit, going all the way through the straight into turn 1. It's gonna be quite a lunge from all the way back here, but let's see what I will do. Braking just after the 100 breaker marker, you can see just bit of contact, tiny bit of contact. Seems like he got on the bad side of that contact, and now I'm up into P1, pretty much pushing the envelope, pushing the limits, on the edge of what seems to be grip, time and space, which is quite an interesting combination to be on the edge of, because a tiny mistake will send you all the way into the shadow realm and could be lethal to your health. And now coming into the pits to change my tires, which is not mandatory to change the tires, but changing tires is benefiting since you have to pit either ways. So now I'm in the pit changing my tires, and you got pretty much everyone else doing the same, because if you're not changing the tires, you're just not benefiting, because you will lose maybe 1 second in the pits, 1 second, 2 seconds, which will be much more than made up for on the track, because you will just have a fresh set of soft tires and pretty much a quite less heavy fuel tank. So now going out in P5, very close to the Ford GT behind, and now you can see the Ford GT pretty much waiting to lunge me at any moment. Is that a Ford GT or a McLaren F1? My mistake, seems like it's a McLaren F1, which is not a good car around this track at all in my opinion. The only good place that car is on the street. And now we're finishing the race in P1 after pretty much the McLaren F1 doing nothing. Quite an easy race.